New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And good morning, dear ones. Rev BRZ with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we're a couple of ministers talking shit. This happens every Friday morning here at 7 a.m. on the time zone here on the New Thought Media Network. Very grateful that you are with us here today. And, well, we're going to dive right into it because, you know, Z, like I said in the pre-show, I was really expecting that we could just show up this week and talk a little bit more about the supreme fraud in our country that we call Clarence Thomas and all the weird stuff we keep learning about him. Supposedly anonymous, the hacker group Anonymous has released his Pornhub history over on Twitter. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just something that came across my desk, but no, we don't get to talk about something easy like that because this week's been really another unique experience with guns in America.
Yeah. You think about over the past couple of weeks, you know, between mass shooting and senseless shootings, it's got to be, you know, the school in Kentucky, the bank the school in Tennessee, the bank in Kentucky, the innocent girl up in New York, the Alabama shooting, the new one, the Kansas City shooting, and then the new one with the little girl in North Carolina, and then don't leave out the Texas one with the
cheerleaders.
With the cheerleaders. And now that's 7 that we know of.
Yeah. It's gotten to the point where it's almost impossible to keep up with it. So, you know, folks, if you're just kind of catching up with the conversation, there's now a term for this. They're called wrong place shootings. And the 4 that happened this week, I've also come to learn these are not just the first 4. This has been going on most of this year, and there's stories into late last year where these things are happening. So let's recap what we know. We know that a teenager knocks on the wrong door in Kansas City, looking to pick up their sibling. We know that an 84-year-old white man claims he had just gone to bed, heard the doorbell ring. All right, so truthfully, who tries to break into the house by ringing the doorbell? First off. Second, he hears the doorbell ring, so he grabs his pistol, living in fear, grabs his pistol, gets to the front door, and accounts are different. Some say he opened the inside door and there was a glass storm door. Others say that he didn't even get that far. He claims the teen was trying to pull the door open. The teen says that isn't what happened. End result is he fires 2 bullets. He fires twice at the kid. Now, luckily, that young man didn't die, but he is seriously injured, and he and his siblings are scarred for life mentally.
Yeah.
We have a group of young women that pull into the wrong driveway in New York State, which, by the way, is not a stand your ground state. And the homeowner just walks out on the porch and fires his shotgun a couple times at the car. This guy doesn't even know who's in the car.
Could have been his long lost brother.
A group of 4 teenage girls, cheerleaders, go out for lunch in Texas. When they come back to get into their car, one girl opens the door to the wrong car. There was a man sitting in the passenger seat. As she opened the wrong door, closes the door, gets in the right car, and the guy gets out all huffy puffy. She's trying to apologize, and he just opens fire. There was one dead in that incident. And
I don't think she died. She just got seriously injured. They were on their way down to a cheerleading competition this weekend.
Okay, I thought it wasn't her; it was her friend that was in the car. But regardless, so again, and yesterday, a man opens fire in North Carolina because a basketball rolled into his yard. 24-year-old male, basketball rolls into his yard. He screams at the kids. Somebody says something. He goes back into his house, comes out with a pistol, and starts just firing at the entire neighborhood. The neighborhood was running fathers were trying to hide their kids from the gunfire. I was reading a book last night, and there's a line in there from Martin Luther King Jr., and I might paraphrase this I might say this a little off, but he wrote, "I'm tired of fighting for the freedoms that have always been ours." I'm tired of looking over my shoulder at every single person that I passes my view. I'm tired of wondering who next, where next, and when is my turn. Yeah. Nobody should be living under this kind of fear.
No, and that's why we have to figure out a way to change this narrative. And I know it's hard, but we have to change this narrative, because the more these stories hit the airways, the more people are going to be fearful.
Yeah.
And so now this week, I guarantee you there'll be a whole nother surge in individuals purchasing guns for whatever reasons, because I don't want somebody indiscriminately shoot at me, or I don't want nobody to try to ring my doorbell, or whatever the case might be, right? Justifiable or not. Because right now we're beyond justifiable. Like that shooting in Alabama where the 4 kids died, there were 35 at the last count that got injured.
Yeah.
I mean, and so now you have 35 people who are mentally scarred for life.
Mm-hmm.
And so now their trust of humanity, their trust of being around a bunch of people could be compromised. And so we have to figure out ways. One, I saw a story the other day on NBC, which said something to the effect that if you gave every American a gun, there would still be 100,000 more guns available beyond every individual in America having a gun.
I don't want to hear that. Right.
We have to figure out a way to get rid of these assault. I mean, all of them are bad, but definitely these assault rifles where I can shoot off a bunch of rounds. And so, we have to change the narrative. And we want to know these things, but I think now it's just I don't know what the answer is yet, but there's too many being reported to galvanize and continue to separate the community.
Right. Well, and you talk about, I just real quick pulled up a site here, and this is Pew Research Center. They indicate that 69% of Americans do not own guns.
Wow.
So the majority of Americans don't own guns. 31% own a gun, and there's 100,000 more guns than there are people in our country, right?
That's a lot of guns.
These numbers don't add up.
Yeah.
This ain't the way it's supposed to work.
As they say, the math ain't mathing.
Math ain't mathing. Exactly. Hey, let's say a couple of shout outs real quick. Good morning, Wayne. Good to see you there, all the way from Calgary. Shaybird, good to see you, dear one. Glad you're with us again. Anyone else that might be watching and you haven't had a chance to chat along or chime along or say hello, please do so. Leave a comment in the comment box, even if you're watching it another time. If you're watching later on in the day or next week sometime, drop a comment. Let us know what you're thinking. We'll get a chance to see that and do our best to respond as appropriate. So please join in with us. All right. And here, I want to share another piece of all this, right? Because I think you and I agree the time has come to either limit the number of guns on the street, completely ban guns in private hands, find some sort of regulation, yada, 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 yada. And when we look at these 4 incidences, we see 4 very different scenarios. Right. In Kansas City, it's an old white guy and a young black man. In upstate New York, it's a older white guy and white teenagers. In Texas, I don't know the nationality of the shooter.
I think the guy was Hispanic
and 4 white girls. In North Carolina, it's a black man and in a predominantly white community, white neighborhood. All the injured are white. So we can't, it's obvious this isn't just racially motivated any longer. It's obvious that this isn't just mental illness any longer. There is one common factor, and that is the gun. Now, people are going to say, yeah, but if we didn't have guns, there'd be more knifings. And there was an incident right here in my neighborhood, not in my neighborhood, but right up the street in an area of the suburbs here where I drive often, an incident late Wednesday night into Thursday morning where someone was driving around throwing rocks at cars. When we talk rocks, we're talking 5-inch diameter landscaping style rocks. One woman was killed. Numerous others were injured. And so there's going to be those out there say, what do you want? You want me to outlaw the rocks next? You want us to get rid of rocks? Then they're going to use tree branches or something. And the argument is always that people that don't believe in the law or follow the law are going to find a way to get a gun anyway. Right? We don't hear very often about mass rockings.
Right.
It's not often you hear of. This is the first time in years we've ever had to talk about a rock attack. But we talk about gun attacks and we talk about gun violence. It's part of the daily conversation at this point.
Yeah.
So.
And Bob has a comment in about he has guns for hunting, and I get that. I'm from the South. I'm from the Georgia, Florida, Alabama region. So nothing but hunters there, hunting everything from squirrel to deer. And so I understand. But when I grew up, there was no hunting for sport, right? We didn't hunt to put the head on the wall. We hunted to feed the family, right? So it's not a sports thing. I don't need to be out whatever, and I need to go out, get the skill, get the gun, and shoot the animal to take home and feed my family. But that's not what happened. I don't need a AK or some semi-automatic rifle to shoot a deer. By that time, if I've got to put that many holes in the deer, the meat's not going to be any good to eat.
True.
So I get if you're a sport, and I would tend to believe that there are definitely a large number of hunters that respect the gun. I mean, the first thing I learned about the gun was to respect the gun. You don't point it at anything. You don't want to shoot. You don't pull it out if you're not going to use it. I mean, there were certain things that were taught about the gun. It was not a play toy. This is not just not a slingshot. And those kinds of things now, I would tend, these things are for committing robberies or crimes. Some of these weapons, they seem to be just that, or for mass killing. They're not, they're made for military.
Or handguns.
Yeah.
And specifically handguns, right? And for those that maybe are not on the same page, literally the same Facebook page as Bob is watching us on. Good to see you, by the way, Bob. Bob's an old friend I haven't communicated with in quite a while. Glad to see you found us. Thank you for joining the conversation. And Bob agrees assault weapons are completely useless. Right, I get it. If you live an hour from the local police response and somebody's banging on your door in the middle of the night, I understand that sense of security having a handgun or something like that. And we've got to do a better way of determining how these get into people's hands and how they don't, because it seems like in all these cases, here's what I see. In all these cases, not one of these people said, "Can I help you? What the do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
Hey man, what are you trying to do?"
Yeah.
Not one of them asked the question. So we are living in a state of shoot first and ask questions later. And I think we all know, I mean, I was taught that doesn't work. I was taught that if you don't want to get shot, don't take your guns to town. That's Johnny Cash. Right? Don't take your guns to town, son. Don't walk around with these things. Don't just pull these, because if you pull out a gun, chances are pretty high you're about to get shot too. And I think that's what happened in Kansas City. They're not releasing many details, but somebody probably pissed somebody off and somebody had a gun and they started shooting one direction or threatened one direction. Somebody else said, "Oh yeah." And we now have 5 people in custody identified as shooters in the Kansas City.
Alabama. That's the Alabama one.
Sorry, the Alabama incident. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they get confusing.
So in the birthday party incident, it's starting to appear like somebody pulled out a gun. Somebody else said, "Oh, you ain't doing that in my party," and pulled out their gun. And now we've got 35 people injured, 4 people dead, and 5 people in jail. And
the youngest kid is 16.
Yeah.
I mean,
the basketball shooting, the one girl's 6.
6.
You shot at a 6-year-old, dude. You shot at a 6-year-old. What fear did you have? How could you? What are you afraid of? A basketball rolls into your yard.
Yeah, but it speaks to the work that we have to do, right? We have to begin as Shay stated earlier, we have to begin to shift the consciousness of the appearance. Now, there were several of these states of locations. I heard that the guns weren't even registered. You can get a gun and you don't even have to register the gun. That's senseless. If I need a license and I need to register and on occasion go and get a test,
insurance,
and make sure I got insurance to drive a car, they need to do the same thing with the guns.
Yeah.
Right. You have to take some mandatory tests and training and licensing and insurance. That should be given. But what we have to do also, and I think it's more paramount, 2 things. We have to begin to develop communal spirits between people. We have to start saying hi to our neighbors. We have to start asking our neighbors, can I help you? Or if you see the kids outside playing, "Hey kids, I got some candy," or whatever. I mean, that could get crazy too. But Here's that's a whole nother story. I won't even go there because that leads. But
Yeah.
the different things that we can do to build community support and build trust, we have to begin to do this and stop walling off in our little separate places,
Right.
and think of everybody as the enemy.
Yep. No, I agree with you there 100%. And maybe I've said this a little bit recently. There might be a level of PTSD that we all have because of the pandemic. So everybody's a little bit, we're all a whole bunch different than we were a few years ago. We can't base what's happening today on statistics from 2018, 2019, even 2020, because 2020 was the anomaly where nothing happened, or not much at least. But it would appear that the aftermath of that, if you will, is that people are less trusting, more separated than ever. Yes, there's a political component to that too, that is driving that separation. And also reminded in this book that I'm reading, the whole chapter that I read last night was all about Martin Luther King Jr. and his life. And there were great reminders in there, especially for a white guy, a different perspective on that era and who he was and what his life represents and all of that. And one of the things that struck me was that even after his house was bombed, he would not let his people pick up guns in retaliation. When his people wanted to say, look, we got to defend you, we got to show some force here, and we got to pick up the guns and go out there, even in the midst of that, he said no. And he said, those folks are sick, they have an illness, and we need to love them. We need to love them through this. We need to love them into their own healing, because, well, I think every great prophet has said it one way or another: an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. The moment a gun for a gun is leaving a lot of people dead, injured, and scarred for life. And I do agree. I think we are the people that can change this. That's why I feel so adamant about this conversation every time we have to talk about it.
And one of the things that we have to do, you brought the political thing in, and I'm gonna just hit it for a minute. We, right now, our elected officials up in Washington are fighting over the debt ceiling, right?
Yep.
In an economic powder keg within our country right now. And if we, just to show how irresponsible or self-serving they are bringing this country really now, with the interest rate and inflation, on the brink if they get this debt ceiling thing wrong. And they only got a few more months to get it right? It happens in the summer. And so when we, the whole thing about working together is sitting down and having a conversation and bringing your points and your perspectives and your evidence to enlighten the other side, so that you can come to a better conclusion than not. But that's not what we're doing. You would think that somewhere in the Capitol, with all of the shootings that have happened in the last 2-3 weeks, somebody would be pushing a bill right now that's on every newsstand that says we are in the process of changing some of these gun control laws, not to take people's guns away, but to make them more responsible. And if you're not responsible, we will take it away.
Yep. It's Colorado. For those that don't know, both LZ and I live here in Colorado. There is a ban, legislation, regulation against high capacity magazines. And our state legislature has been debating a bill that would ban automatic and semi-automatic weapons, or the conversion to a semi-automatic.
Right.
That failed late last night. 1 o'clock in the morning, it failed in committee. And here's what I keep hearing. These laws will never pass. Because while I think the majority of Americans agree these weapons are not necessary, good friend Bob, old friend Bob with, sorry, Bob, that's not age. That's just how long we've known each other. Right, Bob owns a number of guns, but also recognizes that these high capacity machines of murder aren't necessary, are ineffective for any. They're only designed to do one thing, and that's kill a lot of people in as short amount of time as possible, or make sure that you're the one that goes home alive when anybody else isn't. Yeah. And we here in Colorado, we're a pretty purplish state by most accounts. We can't get an assault weapon ban passed. I can't imagine what it would be like in Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida. Speaking of Atlanta, there's our friend Reverend Dr. David Alexander Sheridan with an article I'm going to have to read after the program. We do have time, David. If you want to jump in, let me know. I'll send you the link. Here's my question, I guess. Are there enough of us that can love enough?
Yeah.
Or is this beyond fixing at this point?
Well, I like that question because it, in my mind, it asks everyone to, as the song says, stand up. There is something that each one of us can do to begin to unravel this. Speak to your friend. Speak to your neighbor. Help someone in need. Get to know someone who you don't know or don't know you, so you can exchange ideas so they can get to know you better and fear you less because of whatever, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, political ideas, because we know that the more we begin to talk to one another, we begin to see this person's just like me. They want to be successful. They want to be happy. They want their kids to be safe. They want to have a vacation every now and then. The same things.
Yeah. We need to come together nationwide with a new standard. Regulate guns the same way we regulate cars. And yep. Period. Yeah, absolutely. Registration and insurance, please.
Yep.
You've been involved in a shooting. Registration and insurance, please.
And your license.
Yep. License, registration, and insurance. Yep. In Colorado, I don't know if this is everywhere in every state, but if in Colorado, if you were involved in an injury accident in a motor vehicle, it is mandatory for you to do a blood test for them to draw blood at the scene.
Wow.
It's mandatory. They have to get somebody there to draw your blood at the scene so they have an accurate record of if you were drinking or high. Colorado's legal marijuana state, cannabis legalization here. So they have to have, so any little thing, right? If you're driving and you bump into, and somebody walks out in front of your car and you bump into them, or you clip a bicycle or something small happens, it doesn't have to be a death accident. It has to be an injury accident. And if there is any injury whatsoever, then we're going to send David a link real quick. He's going to join us. Then they have to draw blood to determine your sobriety at that time.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And we need to start doing the same thing with guns.
Yeah. Yeah. And I forget, I don't know if it was Shay or Bob, but the whole idea, there was I had two friends who I thought were good friends, got into a little battle over mental health and guns and privilege. And I'm thinking to myself, we're thinking like we're in a movie. There is no werewolf theory. There's no silver bullet to kill the werewolf. You need the silver bullet, you need the garlic, you need the holy water, you need the cross, you need the crescent, you need all of it, because one thing ain't going to work. And all that's to say is we have to have a holistic approach to these things. It's not just the guns, and it's not just the mental health, and it's not just the privilege. It's a combination. There's an intersection. You know, you hear this word now about intersectionality, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we go back to our math, we said earlier that math ain't mathing, right? One thing you learn in math very early is set theory. When you start studying set theory, there is an intersection between sets when you start studying, when they go through that part, and you learn that we all have something in common. So let's start there and then increase it so that we become one whole entity. And that's how we come together. That's how we solve problems. And that's how we address issues between the factions that are now disrupting life everywhere on the planet.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Dr. David, I sent a link inside your messenger window. So you should be getting that through your Facebook Messenger. It should be there available for you at any point now.
Yeah. And
we're talking holistic healing. We're talking systems healing. We're talking, right, where no one is left behind and no one is left out of the love.
Yep.
And that's part of what is happening, right? We can see that there is as much hate for the gun owners as there may be. See, and I don't even want to I don't think gun owners are targeting people. Like, it's easy to lump that in that way, and it's not. There are good people that own firearms that are responsible and would gladly do the insurance registration and licensing pit. And there are those that are living in such deep fear.
Yeah.
All of these incidences we're talking about today would appear, and we don't have all the information, but it would appear that many of them are based in that deep sense of fear. And so I try to defend myself. Hey, here we go, all the way from Atlanta. What's going on? Oh, I got to get rid of this. We're cutting you off at the nose there, Dr. David. Welcome. Good morning from the Atlanta area. Reverend Dr. David Alexander, Senior Minister, and I'm sorry, I always forget the name.
Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta.
That's it, Spiritual Living Center. So, and no stranger to our program. So welcome back, sir. Good morning. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Good morning. I couldn't resist to drop in. And since I just got back from Nashville, Tennessee, where I was marching with pastors from around the country and William Barber on this very issue, and carrying children caskets to the Capitol that were rejected at the door by the legislatures. They would not allow them in. It was very symbolic of where we're at in our country right now, right? Where the people, because we have this divide between where the majority of Americans are, which is about reasonable action and reasonable measures, that something must be done. And we can differ on what that something is, but there's tremendous momentum on something, right? And then legislatures that just refuse to consider anything. Refuse to even look at like they refuse the caskets, they refuse. And of the two, people nationally know the two young men, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, that were expelled and then reappointed. Justin Jones came out when we were outside with 2 adult caskets, 3 children caskets, and a baby casket. And he came out, and they were saying that the caskets could not sit on the floor inside the rotunda, the Capitol. We had blankets and everything else to put them on. So anyway, so he came out and he said, "Where's the baby casket?" And he went to the baby kit, which was one that one individual could hold and was much lighter. He picked it up and took it in and said, "Well, they can't stop me. They can't, it won't touch the floor because we'll just hold it." They took it in. But that's where we're at, right? Between just politicians who just literally refuse to look at the issue, and the rest of the country that wants something to happen. So I think our only way forward is to force them to, you know.
Yeah. And this is the sales pitch number one, right? Everybody, young, old, in between, should right now, who care about these issues, should go register to vote. If you have the wherewithal to run for office, run for office. And if you're not familiar with the political system, take a class. They have some civic classes at community colleges and that you can take for free to learn how our system of government works, so you can be not only informed about the issues, but informed about how laws and legislation is passed and what it takes to get somebody out if they're not doing the job.
Yeah, there's a website, I think it's called Run for Something, or Run for Anything, or something to that effect. But the idea of it is, and they've seen an uptick, like 30% uptick since the shooting in Nashville, of young people in particular registering on this site. And it's that very idea that you're young, you're interested in these issues, and you don't know where to start or what to do. Just register on that website. Maybe Robert can get it pulled up, and then they'll contact you and figure out where you live and what might from dog catcher to to senator,
Yes.
and everything in between, and do training and all that kind of stuff, and to figure out what you might have a skill set for, or whatever, a good place to start, and this website is really gaining traction, and like go back to the Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, they went from being fairly local, very popular locally figures, to now national stars. They're going to be in politics for a long time. They're both under 30. And a lot of people are joining them. And that's what we need to see. That's what we need to see, is the tide change and just, shift this thing.
And a while back in my younger days, I was the chairperson of the diversity commission here in my city of Lakewood, and we had community boards, right, where we would bring people in from the community, from different aspects, different backgrounds, to discuss issues, to talk about highway safety or develop. It could be as simple as that, so that people begin to get a more holistic view of the issues, people's concerns or whatever, so that whenever the decisions are made, they're intelligent decisions. They think about the constituencies, and it's not just a portion of the constituency that gets everything they want, and everybody else has to scramble for scraps.
Right.
Well, I want to say we're going to run out of time here real soon here this morning. So, but before we do, I want to say thank you, Reverend Dr. David, not only for coming in and sharing some of your wisdom, but for the work that you are doing. I was aware that you were at that march and being a part of that and representing the New Thought movement as part of the solution. You've given us a couple of great resources here. I've dropped the links of those into our comment box. So for those watching on some of the pages, specifically YouTube, you should have clickable links to follow and learn more about these resources. And if not, if you can't find those resources on your feed right now, send us an email, info@ntmedia.org. We'd love to, we'll make sure you get, or you can use ministertalk@ntmedia.org. We'll make sure you get those resources. And one of the things I'm hearing that I think is really important here is no matter what we think we might know, it's time to make sure that we learn more about what really is happening in this country, and not just from the topical position of some people are shooting other people. But I think Dr. David's t-shirt has it right on 2 points. I'm not big on the coffee, so read books, fight racism. Mine's always filled with tea. But be educated. I'm right now reading The Cross and the Lynching Tree by James Cone, that I'd never read. And wow, what a great book, and what a great reminder. and opening my eyes to nuances and pieces of the American experience that I wasn't fully aware of. And now I can use that to move me forward in these discussions and in other discussions. So we do have a few more minutes here, gentlemen. If there's a last thought or anything more we want to say before we get out, let people get into their day out there.
Well, I can't let that go by without saying James Cone will change your life. Just want to throw that out there. And the biggest takeaway for me from the weekend in Nashville was this. It was William Barber saying that we as pastors, and I will extend that here for this listening audience, that as spiritual people, as people involved in New Thought spiritual communities, but to properly represent the quote, he said, we as pastors, we can no longer continue to mourn with our congregants, to do memorial services for gun violence, and at the same time refuse to put our feet to changing the policies that are creating these deaths, that doing so is morally bankrupt. And so that was, it was like, yeah, like you can't say, oh, well, isn't this terrible? And let's pray about this, and not put some action towards policy change. So whether that's reading and educating yourself, or just getting involved in the wider scope of conversation. So I want to just sort of extend that to everybody.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And in that same vein, some of us are front line, some of us are back line. And for those who don't want to be on the front line, start a youth program, start a book giving program, start a neighborhood cleanup program. Anything that will begin to take action. That's what we need, action now, because we understand that filibustering and rhetoric and all that comes a dime a dozen, but nothing really happens until someone puts some feet on the ground. And so find your space in the band and let's start playing. That's what I would say.
Amen. Yeah. All right. There we go. Raise up a joyous song. But we're going to raise up a joyous noise that is that noise of healing and that noise of change and that noise of commitment to getting this done. Cool. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We're going to say thank you to our sponsors and donors real quick, and then we're out of here. So please don't go away. Give our donors and sponsors the love they deserve and the attention they deserve. We'll be back again next week with more of Ministers Talking Shit here on the New Thought Media Network. Until then, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors and donors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, and all of our individual donors and sponsors. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please come be you.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.